Pokémon, gotta catch 'em all. Or so I've heard. Personally, I'm not quite sure I see the appeal of becoming a crazy cat lady, but for all manner of exotic, dangerous beasts. I mean, can you imagine just how much that would cost to keep all of them fed? Anyway, that is to say, we're going to be trying out Pokemon on the channel here, but in a slightly different way from how one would normally play, and in the process, discover the following. Is it possible to beat Pokemon Let's Go Eevee without catching any Pokemon? So, rules today are pretty simple. We are not allowed to throw any Pokeballs at and catch any wild Pokemon. But that's not to say we can't obtain Pokemon through any means. We can accept Pokemon into our party so long as we weren't the ones to catch it. So, if, say for example, an NPC gifts us one, that's fine. Additionally, we can trade Pokemon with other trainers if that becomes useful to us. Of course, you first need to have Pokemon to be able to trade them. So, I guess we'll need to figure out how that'll work. But anyway, if we can collect all 8 gym badges, beat the Elite Four, and become Pokemon League Champion, all while refraining from catching any Pokemon, I'd call that a success. Alright, I suppose with all that established, it's time to start our Pokemon journey. Meet our protagonist for today, Lizzie, an aspiring Pokemon trainer who values quality over quantity in a Pokemon team, with moral qualms about personally catching Pokemon. She and her rival Grant both have aspirations to one day become Pokemon champion. After exploring around her home of Pallet Town for a bit, Lizzie ran into the local Pokemon professor in some tall grass, where a wild Eevee confronted her. Unfortunately for Lizzie, she had found herself in the midst of what an outside observer might call a Pokemon catching tutorial. If she wished to avoid being mauled by an adorable Eevee, she had no choice but to follow Professor Oak's instructions and toss a Pokeball at that oh-so-threatening Eevee. Disappointed, she gazed at the Pokeball she had imprisoned that poor Eevee in. Before she had even set out from her hometown, she had already done the one thing she had committed not to do. But then, the Pokeball jumped up and ran away. Lizzie and the professor pursued the runaway Pokeball all the way to the Pokemon lab, where it had hidden amidst the other Pokeballs in the lab. As Lizzie approached the Pokeball, the Eevee within broke free. Lizzie smiled at the surprising revelation. Yes, she had been left with no choice but to attempt to catch a Pokemon, but thankfully, she had failed in that attempt. And in better news, even without having been properly caught, it seemed that this Eevee had taken a liking to her. She had gotten herself a friend. Now, before we continue, I will acknowledge that your mileage may vary with regards to my justification for not counting obtaining this Eevee as a catch. I mean, it spends the vast majority of its time with us not in a Pokeball, which can't generally be said for the Pokemon you catch. And as Pokemon go, there's certainly something different about this one. That being said, if you're counting this as catch 1 of a minimum catch run, that's certainly a reasonable position to ascribe to. I, however, will be proceeding under the assumption that obtaining this Eevee doesn't technically qualify as a proper catch. Anyway, Lizzie then set out from Pallet Town to Viridian City to run an errand for Professor Oak. All the while, she was followed around by that Eevee, which Lizzie decided to creatively and affectionately call Eevee. On the way to Viridian City, the pair were accosted by a few wild Pokemon. Lizzie dreaded these encounters because she didn't want to be forced to catch the Pokemon she ran into. Luckily, she stumbled upon the innovative tactic of running away. She also tried her best to avoid running into wild Pokemon in the first place, as, without catching them, running into them is basically just a waste of time. After finishing that errand, Grant challenged Lizzie to her very first Pokemon battle. Grant had a level 6 Pikachu to square up against Eevee, who was level 5. Eevee had 3 moves he could use. Tail Whip and Growl applied various status effects to Eevee's opponent, while Tackle was Eevee's one way of dealing damage. Luckily, those tackles ended up dealing a lot more damage to the Pikachu than the Thunder Shocks did to Eevee, leading to Lizzie winning the battle fairly comfortably, in spite of the level difference. With that errand for the professor taken care of, Lizzie finally properly set out on her adventure through Viridian City en route to the location of the first gym in Pewter City. But to get there, she had to venture through Viridian Forest. The forest had lots of trainers and is itching for battle, which was a good thing. See, in Pokemon Let's Go Eevee, one of the major ways you can gain experience is by catching Pokemon, an activity which Lizzie does not partake in. That means the only experience her Pokemon can get is by battling other trainers. As such, throughout her travels, she made sure to battle every single trainer she came across. Luckily, in Viridian Forest, that wasn't too difficult a task, since all of the trainers there only had one Pokemon in their parties, which was usually only levels 1 through about 4, or in other words, a lower level than Eevee started at. Anyway, Lizzie took a bit of time to enjoy her stay at Pewter City before eventually challenging the gym. Or at least she would have, if they had let her enter the gym. As it turns out, Pewter City Gym was unimpressed with Lizzie's Pokemon battle strategy of letting Eevee deal with everything single-handedly. In spite of how great that strategy was working so far, they refused to let Lizzie in so long as she didn't possess either a grass or water-type Pokemon. Eevee is, of course, a normal type. But Lizzie wasn't one to give up so easily. She searched all throughout the portion of Kanto she could access at that time in hopes of finding some way to obtain a grass or water-type Pokemon, without having to resort to catching it. But alas, no such opportunity existed. At least, not in the Pokemon world. It arrived. Oh, now you may be wondering what this is. Oh, this is going to be the key to everything. This is what is going to allow us to hopefully progress through this game a bit further without having to catch Pokemon. So let me just open this. Okay. There it is. A Japanese one, interestingly enough, but a Pokeball Plus. The reason we have this little guy right here. Oh, it's not technically catching a Pokemon if you bought it off of Amazon, is it? So yes, I bought a Pokeball Plus off Amazon for about $150. The reason being that each new Pokemon Plus comes with a Mew that you can obtain in your game by connecting the Pokeball Plus controller to your Switch. I can't exactly say I've ever spent over $100 on a single Pokemon before, but hey, it's for the challenge, and now, theoretically, I should be able to trade the $150 Mew to some fellow trainer and get the water or grass type Pokemon Lizzie needs in exchange. Right? So what we're going to have to do is we are going to have to go back into Communicate, and we're going to have to trade the Mew to someone else. So say, trade. Wait, what? You can't trade because you don't have 2 or more Pokemon. You can't trade your partner Pokemon or the Pokemon you've taken out of a Pokeball. Please get your Pokemon ready and then try again. So, after spending $150 to get a Mew, as it turns out, I guess that's not good enough, because they won't let you trade a Pokemon, because I guess the Eevee doesn't count as one of the 2 Pokemon, because you can't actually trade your Eevee away. So I need to get my hands on another Pokemon somehow. I'm gonna have to buy another Mew, aren't I? Oh, joy. Well then, I guess I'll need to make another order from Amazon. See you guys in a couple days. Of course. Oh, by the way, yes, that was my live reaction to the discovery that one Mew was not sufficient to unlock trading. Unlike what is usually the case, I've got some live reactions to insert into this challenge video today. That's because I recorded this whole challenge as a Let's Play for my Let's Play channel, in addition to this video. So, if you want to see up close and personally every step of the process of completing this challenge, then please check out the Let's Play when you're done here. But anyway, we were expecting something, weren't we? Well then. Never thought I'd be the proud owner of 2 Pokeballs in real life. And yet here we are. So what does that get us to? Like $300 in total now? Okay, and we got some air, and we got a Pokeball Plus. Theoretically, this one should have a Mew inside as well. And now that we've got 2 Mews, now we should hopefully be able to get what we actually want, which is a grass or water type Pokemon. Well, let's see how it goes. Okay, so, with $300 spent, we now have 2 Mews, which allows us access to trading. I put forth a plea for aid on the community tab of my YouTube channel, and was able to set up a trade with one Miyuki, who offered me a Squirtle in exchange for one of my Mews. Okay, so our party now consists of a level 1 Mew, a level 1 Squirtle, and a level 7 Eevee. Now let's see what Lizzie can achieve with that. With Lizzie's new Pokemon, Squirtle and Mew having warped in from what must have been another dimension, Lizzie immediately made her way to that gym which had so rudely denied her entry earlier. After presenting Squirtle, she was allowed into the Rock Gym, and immediately began challenging the trainers who trained there. Picnicker Amara and her Geodude became Lizzie's first real challenge of a Pokemon battle. Apparently, Rock-type Pokemon were resistant against Normal-type attacks, and while Lizzie did have a Squirtle, that Squirtle didn't know any Water-type moves yet. In fact, across all 3 of Lizzie's Pokemon, none of them knew a single non-normal type move. So, the burden of winning the fight fell to Eevee, the highest level of Lizzie's Pokemon. The fight was grueling. Eevee's tackles and quick attacks could only barely manage to whittle away mere fractions of the Geodude's health at a time, especially in light of the Geodude's use of the move Defensive Curl. Okay, his defense rose. That's not great. I guess we'll tackle. Oh my goodness, it does nothing! No wonder they want you to have a type advantage. What did you even do? Was that it? It was another defensive curl! In a straight-up no-frills fight between Eevee and the Geodude was obviously superior. Luckily, Lizzie had a simple trick up her sleeve. Potions. Potions are the basic health restoring items in Pokemon Let's Go Eevee. Since the Geodude wasn't strong enough to knock out more than a few points of health on any given attack, a single potion proved sufficient to give Lizzie the win. After a quick trip to the Pokemon Center, Lizzie battled Camper Liam, who had the exact same team as Amara did. As such, the same strategy, with some patience, resulted once again in Lizzie's victory. Before challenging the gym leader, Lizzie of course got her Pokemon healed again, and bought a bunch of useful items from the local Pokemarts. So with 15 potions in hand, Lizzie challenged Brock to battle. Brock's first Pokemon was a Geodude, just like the previous trainers. Although unlike the previous trainers, his was level 11. Eevee's normal-type attacks were just as ineffective as ever against it, but the same general strategy of loads of tackles and potions was enough to best the Geodude. But Brock had a second Pokemon, a level 12 Onix. Eevee started the battle against the Onix with his special sure-hit move, the VV Volley, which only did this much damage. And that's with a critical hit! To make matters worse, the Onix was hitting Eevee for about twice as much damage as the Geodude was. That meant more turns wasted on using potions to heal back up. With a finite supply of potions, which Lizzie was having to use about every other turn, and Eevee doing barely any damage to the Onix with his tackles, a slightly different strategy was in order. Copious amounts of tail whips to lower the Onix's defenses to hopefully help Eevee's tackles become a bit more effective than, well, tackling a rock. The results were very good, taking Eevee's damage from this to this, but the battle was far from over. Eevee was finally doing some okay damage, but he still needed to outlast the Onix. And by using half of Lizzie's potions, Eevee was able to do just that, granting Lizzie her very first gym badge. Just 7 more to go now. After teaching Squirtle and Mew Headbutt, Lizzie decided to continue her journey by traveling along Route 3 towards the next town. The trainers along that route certainly weren't the pushovers Lizzie had fought back in Viridian Forest, but none of them held a candle to that Brock fight. And though the trainers she was facing were getting stronger, so were her Pokemon. Finally, Lizzie's Pokemon were learning some non-normal type moves, like Eevee, who learned Double Kick, which could make short work of fellow normal type Pokemon. And Squirtle finally learned a water type move, Bubble. Mew wasn't picking up any new moves, but that just made it a prime target for TM moves like Payday. As it turns out, Route 3 didn't lead directly to a new town, but rather to Mount Moon, which Lizzie had to pass through to reach her next destination. Luckily, there was a Pokemon Center right before the entrance she could use to get her team back in fighting shape. While she was speaking to the people hanging around the Pokemon Center, a middle-aged man offered to sell her a Magikarp for just $500. What a steal! Lizzie happily took the offer and became the proud trainer of a level 5 Magikarp. Now this Magikarp knew one move, Splash, which did absolutely nothing. 500 bucks well spent indeed. Traversing the caverns of Mount Moon went pretty well, for the most part. This fight against Super Nerd Miguel was pretty tough, though, mostly because his electric-type Voltorb was super effective against Squirtle, and Squirtle was the only Pokemon Lizzie had in decent enough shape to fight. The rest had either had status effects applied to them, or were a Magikarp. With some potions, the Voltorb was defeated, but that just made way for another electric-type Pokemon, Magnemite. Luckily, this one, being Electric Steel, did have a weakness Lizzie could take advantage of. She woke up Eevee and ordered him to use Double Kick, which was super effective, and won the fight. After the fight, Lizzie decided to take the Helix fossil and move on with her life. Or she would have, if she wasn't immediately challenged to a double battle. No matter. With Eevee's quick attacks and Mew's AoE Swift, as well as a few potions, Lizzie was able to prevail. And with that, finally, Lizzie had made it to Cerulean City, where she met someone who taught Eevee a marvelous move, the Sizzly Slide, adding yet another type of move to her repertoire: fire. After exploring the city, Lizzie made her way to the city's gym, which specialized in water-type Pokemon. She needed at least a level 15 Pokemon to gain entry, which luckily Squirtle was exactly, thanks to his sped-up leveling on account of having been traded. Now, as for the fights, Lizzie didn't have any way to land super effective attacks on the numerous water-type Pokemon, but luckily, they didn't have a way to land super effective attacks on her Pokemon either. Now that covers the random trainers. What about Misty herself? Her first Pokemon was a Psyduck, which Eevee was able to double kick into submission pretty easily. Her second was a level 19 Starmie, which definitely necessitated the use of potions due to how much higher leveled it was. Lizzie even used an X special defense on Squirtle, which helped significantly, though even having done that, the Starmie's Psy Waves were ruthless. So much so that Squirtle was only able to get enough of a break from chugging potions to be able to attack when Misty quit making the Starmie use it. At the very end, Lizzie swapped in Eevee for Squirtle to finish the Starmie off with a quick attack, thus winning the battle and obtaining a second gym badge. Also, Squirtle evolved into a Wartortle in the wake of the battle. As Lizzie was deciding where to go next, Grant confronted her. In response, Lizzie had Eevee single-handedly defeat his whole team. The trainers along the path Lizzie had chosen to traverse had quite weak teams. So weak, in fact, that Lizzie had no trouble beating them, even while having Magikarp as her lead Pokemon, in the hopes that it would be able to get more experience that way, and maybe level up and evolve into something worthwhile. There's also this closed-minded trainer. I'm not good at raising Pokemon. I feel sorry for my Charmander because it's not getting stronger. So I want to give it to a better trainer than me. Are you interested? I've got 50 Pokemon. You should catch more than that. No, I don't catch Pokemon. I'm the best at training them, but I will not catch them. Sorry, little Charmander. You're doomed to live a life of mediocrity and obscurity with this loser. Because his small-minded beliefs think that catching is all that matters to a trainer. Anyway, long story short, Lizzie helped out some guy named Bill who rewarded her with tickets to the SSN. So that's where Lizzie decided to head next. Anyway, before we check in on Lizzie reaching the SSN, let's check in on what sort of moves her Pokemon have picked up. Wartortle learned a defensive move, Withdraw, and Lizzie used a TM to replace his Bubble with Scald, which is just a stronger water-type move with the chance to burn. Another TM which got some use was Dig, which Mew learned, giving Lizzie access to a ground-type move. On her way to the ship, Lizzie ran into Grant again, who gave her some revives. In exchange, Lizzie gave him one of her tickets. Lizzie journeyed through a tunnel and down Route 6, where all her different types of moves were starting to really pay dividends. By this point, she could attack with normal, fire, fighting, water, and ground-type attacks. That was starting to get to a critical mass, where most Pokemon she encountered, she had some sort of type counter she could use against them. Or in other words, no more tackling rocks. In short order, Lizzie arrived at Vermilion City, which just so happened to be where the SSN was docking at that very moment. Lizzie entered the ship and got to work doing the only logical thing: invading everyone's cabins and challenging them to Pokemon battles. Hi? I like feisty kids like you. Well, that was threatening and very creepy. Mew ended up being the real MVP through those fights thanks to its new Dig move, which, come to think of it, probably isn't the best move to use while on a boat. Oh well, hasn't been a problem so far. Grant challenged Lizzie again before she could see the captain, but honestly, at least for now, Grant's Pokemon team has been kind of a pushover. Anyway, Eevee learned the secret technique Chop Down, which I'm sure can be used somewhere useful. Now, a real tough fight was against Mina after disembarking. Eevee annihilated her Jigglypuff with the VV Volley, but that still left her Mr. Mime, who was actually strong enough to cause Eevee to faint. But not before Eevee was able to apply a burn to him, which Mew could then take advantage of with some digging. Lizzie then discovered a prime place to use Eevee's newfound Chop Down ability, accessing the Electric Gym. Mew was the MVP here yet again due to how efficient Dig was against Electric-type Pokemon. It all, of course, culminated with a battle against Lieutenant Serge. His first Pokemon, a Voltorb, got nearly one-shot by Mew's Dig, and then finished off by Eevee's Quick Attack. Then Eevee double-kicked his Magnemite into submission. Finally, Mew faced off against a Raichu. And though a bit of paralysis made the fight at least somewhat perilous, ultimately, a couple of digs were able to clutch the win. That's Gym Badge number 3 acquired, and much more easily than last two. I'm sure Lizzie was quite pleased with that trend. With the move Chop Down available to her, Lizzie's next step was to go and check out Lavender Town. The routes and tunnels there honestly weren't too difficult. By this point, Lizzie's team had pretty decent type coverage and thus was able to adapt pretty well to just about any challenger. This only further became the case when Magikarp finally reached level 20 and evolved into a Gyarados. Quickly, Gyarados learned Bite, a Dark-type move, which served Lizzie very well as she scaled Lavender Town's ghost-infested Pokemon Tower. As it turns out, ghosts are weak against Dark-type moves. For some reason. Anyway, Gyarados efficiently bit through most of the Pokemon Lizzie faced, until eventually, this giant ghost stopped her dead in her tracks. With no way to progress further through the tower, Lizzie instead headed to Celadon City to save a captured Cubone. There, Lizzie uncovered Team Rocket's hideout. Then she infiltrated it undercover. Unfortunately, being undercover didn't actually stop her from getting involved in loads of Pokemon battles with Team Rocket members. But I mean, honestly, that's probably a good thing, so her Pokemon could level up some more. Although really it was these conveyors that were a real pain. She faced an annoying double battle outside of the boss's office. As if one poisonous Pokemon at a time wasn't bad enough, now there's two. Then Giovanni, the boss himself, was actually a bit of a pushover. Then with the Cubone saved, Lizzie returned to the Pokemon Tower and was finally able to get the whole ghost situation solved. And she ran into these two again. They were a bit stronger than last time, but nothing Lizzie couldn't handle. Before moving on, Lizzie took a trip back to Celadon City to take on its gym. They only allowed entry to trainers with cute Pokemon here. Luckily, Mew is of course very cute. All the trainers here were heavily focused on grass-type Pokemon, and all of them got absolutely put in their place by Eevee's Sizzly Slide, even including Erica, the gym's leader.
How about a Sizzly Slide? I'm sorry, Erica. You might want to ban flames in your gym. Because, yeah, that was not even a contest, really.
The next place Lizzie ventured to was Saffron City, and Silphco specifically, which an acquaintance of Lizzie's, Blue, had the great idea that Lizzie should purge Team Rocket from. But first she had to beat Blue himself. This fight was something else.
A Power Whip. Oh my!
The only one of Lizzie's Pokemon that was really strong enough to stand up to Blue at all was Blastoise. But that didn't stop Gyarados and Eevee from teaming up to take down Blue's Charizard. It eventually worked, after using a lot of healing potions. Before actually taking on Silphco, Lizzie explored the town a bit and found this dojo. She had Mew use the psychic attacks it had finally learned to destroy the trainers in that dojo and claim a 5th Pokemon as her prize for beating them. A Hitmonchan. Anyway, with her Pokemon team of 5, Lizzie was able to make her way through Silphco, slowly but steadily. Seriously, it took her a couple hours to fight every single trainer in there. But eventually, she was finally able to challenge Giovanni again, and this time he added a Nidoqueen to his team. It didn't stop all of his Pokemon from nearly getting one-shot, though. For her trouble, Lizzie received a totally useless Master Ball, a Lapras, and a Porygon. That is 7 Pokemon in Lizzie's possession, so now finally at this late juncture, Lizzie was able to field a full team of 6 Pokemon. Before leaving town, Lizzie challenged the local psychic gym, which was certainly more difficult than the most recent ones. More confusing, too. The gym leader, Sabrina, was actually quite a tough fight. She had 4 Pokemon, if you can believe it. I'll be honest, Lizzie didn't really have a particularly great strategy that led to her victory here. It was mostly just a bunch of potions. To make it to her next destination, Lizzie first had to wake, fight, and catch a Snorlax. Good thing that last part was optional. Running away was a perfectly valid option. Lizzie traversed the route to Fuchsia City with relative ease and quickly challenged the local gym there after arriving. Or rather, she would have, were it not for the fact that you needed to have caught at least 50 species of Pokémon to enter the gym. Well, that's a problem. So yeah, that's not exactly an ideal development. But hey, at least the gym says that we've already caught 10 Pokemon species, so we're already a fifth of the way there. Wait a minute! That's news to me! Look, you can debate about Eevee, but the rest of these Pokemon we clearly did not catch. And even if we did, we've only ever had 7 Pokemon anyway, so where's this 10 number coming from? Ah, the Pokédex. That makes sense. So it would seem that catching Pokemon isn't actually what this gym requires of us, but rather that we fill 50 entries in our Pokédex. Now that we have a way of achieving. That way is by trading. So I put out the call, and soon a helpful viewer with the username Junior answered it. So basically we just traded a bunch of Pokemon back and forth for almost an hour, thus allowing Lizzie to fully catalog them in her Pokédex for the brief moment in time which she possessed each of the Pokemon for. The strategy worked perfectly, thus allowing Lizzie entry into the gym. The gym was pretty heavily poison-themed, the type I find most annoying to battle against. But it's not as if Lizzie doesn't have a great strategy to employ against that typing. After that, Lizzie let Gyarados bully some Pokemon in the ocean en route to Cinnabar Island. And wow! Apparently this place had a research lab capable of Jurassic Parking fossilized Pokemon. So sure, why not swap out Porygon from the squad in favor of an Aerodactyl? Sounds fun. Gives us some rock type. Sounds good to me. Lizzie was raring to take on Cinnabar Island's gym, but first she had to take a detour through the Pokemon Mansion to grab a key. Then the gym itself was set up like a quiz show of sorts. Basically, Lizzie would get asked a question, and if she answered wrong, she'd be punished by having to engage in a Pokemon battle. Needless to say, Lizzie intentionally threw every question, so she could get as many battles as possible, and ensure her Pokemon got lots of that sweet XP. Overall, the gym was extremely easy thanks to it being the Fire Gym, and the fact that Lizzie had quite a few ways to destroy her foes with water.
Alright, Waterfall, let's go. A Fire Blast, eh? Well, that didn't really do much. Like a Flapless. There we go. A single Gyarados destroyed this entire gym. You guys should diversify slightly.
Only one gym remained to challenge, a Viridian City's gym. But first, a detour to get a Mega Evolution Stone. Thanks, I guess? Anyway, it's the Ground-type gym, which by sheer coincidence means this gym, too, is very vulnerable to water. Now as for the gym leader fight, it's certainly the most challenging Giovanni fight yet. Gyarados took out his first 2 Pokemon easily, and then Mew came out to deal with the poisonous Nidoqueen. Then Eevee, who was the Pokemon with the move Dig at this point, fought Nidoking. Admittedly, not a great idea, but Eevee just would not quit.
There you go. Eevee has gotten underground before getting poisoned, that's good. An Earthquake! You've seen through my ploy! Eevee toughed it out so you wouldn't feel sad. Well, thanks, Eevee. Good luck. You're gonna need something close to... Yeah, okay. I'm sorry, Eevee. I'm so sorry. Eevee, forgive me. Forgive me. Eevee. Eevee toughed it out so you wouldn't feel sad? What the heck? You know what? This is either going to go really well or really badly. Eevee, it's time to use your super move. Eevee's sure hit move. This better, like, finish him. VV volley? Yeah! Go Eevee!
So yay! Organized crime defeated. But Lizzie's journey still had one more step left in it. She still had yet to become Pokémon Champion. But before that, a bit of last-second training was in order. That is to say, Lizzie traipsed back across the various routes on Kanto to fight any trainers she had missed up to that point. You never know what difference a couple extra levels could make. Alright, finally. Victory Road was laid out before her. And you know what? Now would actually be a great time to bring up that one of my biggest concerns going into this challenge was that my Pokemon would end up being significantly underleveled on account of not getting any XP from catching Pokemon. But quite frankly, that basically didn't happen. Even now, while I'm sure Lizzie's Pokemon could be a bit higher leveled than they are, she's still got a few levels advantage on the random trainers challenging her on Victory Road. So yes, as it turns out, leveling really did not end up being that big of a factor here. Ultimately, Lizzie prevailed against her foes on Victory Road, and was able to reach Indigo Plateau. She stocked up on items before taking the plunge and facing the Elite Four. Lorelei was her first opponent. She specialized in Ice-type Pokemon. Lizzie's first reaction to that was to rejoice and imagine how great it would be for Eevee to sizzly slide them, since, fire beats ice. Unfortunately, most of these Ice-type Pokemon were also Water types, so fire wasn't nearly as advantageous as one might have initially expected. Eevee did handle the first couple alright, especially Jinx, but then Lizzie brought Mew and Gyarados in to clean up the last two. Bruno isn't worth talking too much about. In theory, he's the fighting type specialist, though his first Pokemon was an Onix, which Lizzie brought Blastoise in to deal with. The rest, though, were fighting types, and they were all one-shot by Mew's psychic attacks. Except for Poliwrath, who, to save psychic uses, Lizzie opted to instead just have Mew Thunderbolt twice. Still easy. Agatha brought some poison types, which Eevee dug into submission. And ghosts, which Gyarados crunched. Moving on. Lance had a bunch of dragons and dragon-adjacent Pokemon, each of which Lizzie had a perfect counter ready to go against. So really, no problems here. And with the Elite Four vanquished, only one fight remained. A fight against Grant for the title of Champion. Grant's Pidgeot went full Mega Evolution, but in spite of that, Aerodactyl was able to edge out a win against it thanks to a type advantage. Next up was his Raichu, which Lizzie matched Eevee against. As it turns out, Raichus can't do much against an underground opponent. Good work, Eevee. Next, Grant sent out a Vileplume, which Eevee damaged considerably by sizzily sliding it, but ultimately got feinted by due to a ludicrously powerful Solar Beam. It was up to Hitmonchan to finish it off with fire and ice punches, which, in spite of the Vileplume's heals, he managed to successfully do. Then Mew was out to take on his Slowbro. Mew was far from immune to all of the surfing going on, but Slowbro was even weaker to Mew's Thunderbolts. Then, quite honestly, I felt bad for Grant's Rapidash squaring off against the Mega Blastoise. Yeah, that's just not fair. And finally, the Cubone from before, now a Marowak, was all that stood between Lizzie and victory. The task fell to Gyarados to finish the job, and a waterfall did just that. Finally, after a long journey, Lizzie was Pokemon Champion, and all without catching any Pokemon. So long as you're not counting Eevee, which, as I've already established, I don't. So, in my opinion, yes, it is possible to beat Pokemon Let's Go Eevee without catching any Pokemon. I hope you enjoyed what you've seen here today. If you want to truly see every moment in detail of this challenge, then I'd recommend you check it out in Let's Play form on my Let's Play channel. Additionally, if you're interested in watching more challenge videos like this one, then there is a wealth of them for you to enjoy on this channel. So have a look around, and maybe consider subscribing while you're at it, so you can be notified as to future videos like this. But anyways guys, until next time, I have been CMeeCraft, hoping to reign over another successful challenge soon. Goodbye.